comedy. Sometimes people, when you say comedian, it's such a broad term. What I do, have you guys ever seen the TV show Seinfeld? I know that's super old, and you guys might
love
know.
that show.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You guys have seen it. Okay. And so in between, Jerry you'd see him at a club and it'd go, do. And then it would show him at the club and being like, did you ever notice this and that thing? That's always his style, right? Did you ever notice? So that's what I do. Not necessarily the do you ever notice stuff, but my job is ultimately to just go up and make people laugh using just whatever stories or whatever ideas I can come up with. I'm sure you've seen stand-up comics before, but to be honest, I didn't get interested in stand-up comedy until I had finished college. Because I was looking through this little introductory sheet. I actually was just on a Zoom call right before Mariana, before I saw her email, and just shot a quick connection. So it was somewhat of an impromptu appearance that I'm making here this afternoon. But yeah, so I studied in college. I wanted to be a doctor. Maybe some of you want to do that now. So I did what the biology track. So I studied biology, and then I did, my major was biology with an emphasis in molecular biology. And that gave me just an interesting background in learning about life and stuff like that. I don't know if any of you guys like biology fans. Science was always my favorite subject. And one of the questions that Miss Benson asked me to address was sort of how does what you learn in school affect what you do now? And oddly enough, a biologist and a comedian, people think that it's super different, but it's really actually not that different. So what I do for work, when I'm preparing for work, I sit down with like a notepad and I write out things that I thought were funny. Well, I sit down. I actually have to review things that I thought were funny, because have you ever sat down when they say, hey, sit down and write your paper on this, and then you end up staring around the room and looking at everything and thinking about nothing but anything else other than your paper that you have to write, right? It's impossible. I have the hardest time. I remember my parents used to tell me, they'd go, when I was like little kid, right? They'd go, Steve, you need to concentrate. And I'd be like, of course, concentrate. Concentrate. I'm concentrating. To be fair, I didn't know I forgot my camera's up there. To be fair, I didn't know what the word concentrate meant. So I would just look around the room and say the word concentrate over and over and have no idea what I was doing. The reason I say that is because as a comedian, when they say write jokes, you find yourself going, write jokes, write jokes, write jokes. I've been writing jokes for about 12 years now for work. And I found that I never come up with the ideas for jokes when I sit down to write them. But I always come up with them just randomly throughout the day. Like you're walking around town and you're like, huh, that's funny. So I write it down. I make a little note in my phone and I write it down. And then I'll come back to it later. Let's see. So yesterday I wrote this kind of weird thing. And I don't know. This is an example of how we start writing a joke, right? So we tried. Okay. I like water more than any other drink, but feel pressure to like other things. Because like if you go out to eat or something like that and they go, what do you want to drink? And you don't say, I want a Diet Coke or I want some sort of fancy drink. And me, I like water, but for some reason there's social pressure to be like, what do you want? What's fancy that you want? And I'm always like, I feel like I have to fancy it up. So I'll be like, I want water on the rocks with a twist of lemon. And they're like, you're an idiot. And I'm like, well, it's what I want. So that's not necessarily a joke that I'm going to do yet, but it's like I write it down, and then I write down all the things that I think are funny about them. Have you ever done spider maps? Do you do that with them? Does that sound familiar?
Occasionally, like a brainstorming web or something.
Brainstorming web. Yeah, everybody has different names for them. Where you put your central idea. So the central idea is that I like water. And then what's weird about that? Well, most people like soda. Other people like fancy drinks. Other people like, you'll draw a little arrow to all these little things. So I'll have my central idea, and then I'll put all my other ideas around on the periphery to try to get an idea of what we could hone in on that could be the funniest part about it. My other buddy, he says he likes diet. What does he like? He loves Diet Coke, a ridiculous amount. I saw him once. Ugh, it was so gross. He had to drink a 2-liter in a half hour during a podcast interview. He did it, but he barfed. Anyways, he did the same thing with Diet Coke, where he's like, talk about all the funny things about Diet Coke or all the facets of it. Anyways, my point in saying that, as a biologist, what's one of the first things that they ask you to do in science? Make observations is one of the biggest things. So making observations as a comedian, making observations as a scientist, I found that actually it's not that far of a stretch. Because, I don't know, maybe some of you love comedy, and maybe some of you are like, I want to do comedy as a grown-up or whatever. I don't know why I said as a grown-up. That sounded weird. But you could do it as a kid, too. There's plenty of kid comics. What I would suggest, like some people might say, what would you – I feel like that was one of the things that was asked. What are the talents, skills necessary, and personality traits that help you out with your career? I would say definitely continuing to have like education. One of my friends is good friends with actually Jerry Seinfeld, and he said of sort of learning how to do stand-up. He said, there's like all these people that go to these expensive forums and pay all this money to learn how to write comedy. And he goes, what I would recommend if I was paid to go do one of these crazy expensive forums and teach everybody how to be very funny and do comedy. He said, I would go in there and I would want a real big banner that I would get to lower as I come in. And they would all come in and they would all pay tons of money just to be there. And we'd have this huge banner, and I'd pull the rope and the banner would go unfurl. And it would say 2 words, just work. It sounds so silly and stupid, but that is really the biggest part of it is just like, look, whatever you want to do, just work at it, and you'll eventually figure it out. The funny thing is we sometimes assume there's so much of life that's involved with talent, blah, 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 blah. Talent is such a small part of the equation, but work is like such a huge, huge, huge part of the equation. So I would say one of the biggest traits and talents that you would have to be a successful comedian would be somebody that works, which sounds kind of funny because a lot of comedians that I know don't really work that hard. And maybe that's why you guys have never heard of them. There's so many comics that you're like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. Did they ever work? No, they don't do anything. And they don't, I mean, you can slide by. There's enough work in the comedy world for you to make a living. But if you want to make a decent living, you really have to work at it.
So I have a question, if I can interrupt you for a second. I have 2 questions, actually. Because I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I've been to many a show, and I also I used to work in the industry, if you will. So I've seen many actor friends go up for an audition and then get rejected or shut down. And, it's such a traumatic experience that I never wanted to go through. So I'm just an appreciator of the entertainment, of the art of entertainment. But I have to imagine that that has to be the most difficult part of being a stand-up comic, is having the courage and the resilience to keep at it. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, there's a balance of it for sure. Like, yeah, I love that you guys are called Renaissance Academy, because I often think of artists and stuff like that, and of the Renaissance. It's kind of a weird thing, but I like art, and I like to view different pieces of art. And I notice sometimes when you look at art from a certain time period, do you guys know who Salvador Dali is?
Oh, yes.
Salvador Dali, he's real famous for painting these clocks that look like they're melting. And he would paint these elephants with super tall, long, skinny legs. Like, it was very bizarre. They call it surrealism because it's like reality but twisted, so it's surreal. Whatever that, I don't know, whatever that means, but it just kind of means a little off. Anyways, I was looking at a lot of Dali's early work, and it was very similar to this other artist called Henri Matisse.
Yeah.
Henri Matisse was more of a realist who painted with these beautiful pastels and it would really bring vibrance out in what would be like a very normal picture of like a cabin. You'd be like, "Wow, that's a stupid cabin," but it looks pretty in this like French countryside and stuff like that. Well, it turns out Henri Matisse and Salvador Dali. I hope I'm getting the names right. It might have been. I think they were around the same time. Anyways, I took pictures of both of these pictures when I was in London one time, and was like, "Look at these! These are both the same guy." And I realized, oh, it's because they hang out together. They were friends. And comics sometimes I'll watch comics and I'll be like, oh, their joke telling style is very similar. And I think that you end up mirroring somebody like that. To get back to your question, though, I almost said something else. Miss Benson. Well, comedy, it's weird because what you do, like as an artist, is getting critiqued in the moment.
Yeah.
The challenge is to not depart from what you're doing as an artist, to not like try to go, oh, they're hating what I'm doing. The challenge is to go, oh, okay, you don't like it? I don't care. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to do my best. I don't need to make, this is going to sound weird, but I don't need to make you laugh. I need to make me laugh. And if you want to come along with me and laugh, great. If you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Because art is like for everybody, right? You guys like music. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I grew up in Seattle. During the grunge era, so I was like so into like Seattle grunge. Like I love Nirvana and I love Red Hot Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam. And I was like, that was my thing. But then there were other people who were not into grunge music. They were like, you know what? I like hip hop. I like Run DMC. I like Stir Mix-a-Lot. I like rap. I like that stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, it's cool. But if you said, would you like to go to a music show? You'd say, is it going to be hip hop? Is it going to be grunge? You'd want to know. But for some reason, as a comedian, we like to go, I'm going to go to a comedy show. And you go, well, what kind? No one says what kind. They just go, it's comedy. Just go. You'll have fun. It's like, there is kind of genres of comedy. There's, you have like, where it's slapsticky, where people are just like being stupid and falling off their chairs, which is something that I unfortunately love. I don't know why. I love watching people fall down. Or there's just like stupid or wordplay where someone uses like the funny idiosyncrasies of the English language and makes words funny. Anyways.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are there like specific names for the different genres, or is it just a bunch of different ones, too many to name?
No, there are, but that's a good question because I would say that would be some of them where you could say it's very slapstick. Some people say it's like macabre, which can be a type of comedy that's a little bit more dark, and
then there's even like the ventriloquist comedians, right? And the using props.
Yeah, ventriloquists who do the puppets, like Jeff Dunham or whatever. He has a lot of puppets and stuff like that. So there's a ton of styles. I mean,
how would you classify your style?
I do a lot of story-based stuff.
Okay.
So I love to tell stories. And my goal is to sort of take you on a little journey of a story and hit as many punchlines along the way as I can. That's kind of an interesting thing about comedy, is finding there's a pacing. A lot of times you'll hear people say, comedy is all about timing. And timing is a super important part of it. I tend to say the most important part of it is actually connection.
Mm-hmm.
So that you feel connected to your audience. Like I've been doing this, like right before we signed on, I had a virtual show that was out of New Hampshire, and Washington, D.C. was where the audience was. But right now I'm in my basement, as you can see, in Salt Lake City. So interesting thing, because it's such a different, we're all the way across thousands of miles apart. How am I going to be able to create that connection with them? And a big part of it is just talking about the current circumstances. So I'll talk about doing shows like this one that are virtual. I talk about doing a show over Zoom. Like when the pandemic first started, everything that I did was closed. So what did I do? I did Zoom shows. And I said I did a show with folks in, my little brother, he lives in Abu Dhabi. Maybe you've heard of Abu Dhabi. Some people haven't. It's in the United Arab Emirates.
It's the fighting island where they do UFC.
Do they do UFC in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah.
They do have an island there. It's not the country. It's a city, but it's it's sort of like a state, but they don't call them states. They call them emirates. So there's 7 emirates that make up the United Arab Emirates, and Abu Dhabi is one of the 7. That's funny. Yeah, he used to live across the street from that island. Well, across the river, actually, where they would have Formula One races. Anyways, I'm very distractible. Sorry about that. I get off topic. So I did a show over Zoom that was in Abu Dhabi, Italy, and London at the same time, like all those cities. And I was like, that's actually really cool, because without the pandemic, I would have never done a show in those 3 places at once.
Yeah.
But I do have a bit of an issue when I'm talking to people from other countries, because I was talking to the Londoners, and the Londoners are talking to me with their London accents and saying, so in the US, do you all have corona? And I was like, because I have this problem that whenever I'm talking to someone with an accent, this little thing in my brain goes, do it. And I'm like, no, don't. And my brain's like, do it. Talk like they do. Do an impression of them in front of their face. They'll love it. And you can't not, right? Have you ever talked to someone from a different country and they're like, so do you have COVID? And you're like, maybe a little bit. It's not a nice thing to do, but you get tempted to do it. And that's what I end up doing. So that's an example of how I would try to make a connection with them, talking to them about what we were going through with COVID, also connecting to the fact that we're on a virtual show right now and how it feels and stuff like that. Connection, I mean, that's going to work in whatever industry you have. Obviously, Ms. Benson knows this. As a teacher right now, it's very, very, very difficult to be doing virtual stuff, trying to connect with you guys, because, I mean, here's the thing. You do have a screen in front of you, but you also have this. The whole world is around you, where you're able to just be like, I'm watching the screen, but I'm also distracted, and I can get a Cheeto, and I can do the thing. And it's like this has got to be one of the most ridiculously hard jobs. I mean,
definitely. And I mean, we're almost done with the school year, and I still don't know really what Caden even looks like. He's one of my students here because he never has his camera on. So I probably couldn't pick them out of a crowd. It's hard to forge a connection when you can't see somebody, and look them in the eyes. It's a strange feeling. I can relate.
Yeah. You want to be able to connect. I was trying to do the thing where it shows all of you, but I don't know how to. I don't want to mess it up and accidentally disconnect or something.
You'll mostly see icons.
Yeah. Of course, you guys have also found ways to probably be funny on Zoom as well. I've seen different, and you guys, I know that you've seen different videos where you all plan something behind your teacher's back, and you're like, "Hey, let's all wear silly glasses," or whatever you do. I mean, I don't know. I've seen where they hold up signs and say thank you to the teacher or something fun like that. Like comedy is one of the things that we do as people to feel like that connection to everybody. Because this is super weird what you're doing. I mean, when I went to school, it was all about passing notes and being secretive and trying to do that in class. You guys can't. You have to come up with new ways to be able to connect with each other and be virtually having that fun times together while learning at the same time. I mean, that sounds. I hope I didn't give you too many suggestions on that. How to goof off. I mean, that being said, I think goofing off is kind of a weirdly important part of life. I do it quite a bit. But I do it so that I can learn how to be like, make more connections, get more involved in people's.
And then make more observations, I guess, so you can use them in your shows. I mean, I'm just guessing, but.
Yeah, like one of the questions you asked is like, what does a typical workday look like? I mean, I absolutely try to fill in goofing off to my workday. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. Because as a comedian, I want to be able to be silly and put myself into like a funny mood. But if I'm also not like actually like working, then when I get on stage and I'm like standing there going, do you guys think it's funny that I like water, but no one else, everyone's ordering Diet Coke and the crowd's just staring at me like, what?
I've ordered water a few times.
No.
Yeah, it's good for you, right?
But I get it because I've been a server, and so you're that guy that's only going to order the water. That makes you that guy. And the look of disappointment on your server's face when you order it, I'm sure.
My mom orders water every restaurant we go to.
It does feel like there's pressure from the server because also that cuts into your tip, right? Because it's look, if I'm not ordering,
it's an immediate like, oh, this table's going to be not good.
Yeah, these guys are going to be cheap. These guys. So I always I have to offset it because I don't want to appear cheap. So I always have to order appetizers. I'm like, look at that. Chew on that. Little spinach dip, whatever that is. What is the cheese that they always do with the spinach dip? Is it Parmesan or
artichoke? I think maybe.
Yeah, spinach artichoke. That's right, spinach artichoke. I couldn't think of that. And artichoke is a funnier word. This is a weird part of comedy that maybe you don't need to. Well, there's words that are funnier. I don't know why, but artichoke. Let's be honest. Artichoke is a funny word. Artichoke is a way funnier word than spinach.
Yeah.
Like between the two, like you kind of feel a little bit tickled just saying it because it's like too many. And some of it they say is the hard CH or the hard K sound. I don't know why that is, but that's a big thing that people talk about in comedy. Maybe it's something I shouldn't even go into, but it's definitely why when people lately have been making fun of names where they're like, oh, that's a total Karen move.
Yeah.
You think it's ambiguous? The reason they chose Karen, hard K. That's what it's all about for some reason. It's not because anybody named Karen is a bad person. They're all great. All the Karens I know, they've always been very nice and have never asked to talk to the manager. But
I know a mean Karen.
You know a mean Karen? See, it
She's
happens.
my neighbor.
Anywhere you go, right? You're going to find it. Good people, mean people. It doesn't, and some of them might be your neighbors. Well, you gotta help them out. What do you do, right? If you got a mean neighbor, you gotta. Oh wait, where do you guys live? You guys are in Idaho. Is that right?
No. So I live in Salt Lake City. Most of the class, I think, lives in Lehigh.
Oh, you're in Salt Lake City as well.
I live in here.
Yeah. I was thinking of the gig that I did for Mariana. Was that in Idaho? I did a thing for you guys in Idaho. No, it was down here as well.
Maybe that's
obviously I'm very organized, and I know where I get gigs from. That was pre-pandemic. It feels like it was 20,000 years ago. But
yeah. So something you said earlier I thought was interesting about how you kind of were talking about how you work with or you get inspired by friends that are also in the business, right? You kind of feed off of each other and build upon each other. I would imagine that would be a big part of it too. And I've also noticed similarities between certain comedians whom I later found out happened to go to like the same Groundlings in LA. And so they like develop this sort of style that's unique to that group, like Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, those guys from way back in the day.
Right. And I mean, we think about that Renaissance time and how many artists and creators came out and made like sort of amazing work together. Now I'm thinking, I'm talking, when I was talking about, Dali and Matisse, that was more, was that Belle Epoque? Where was that era called?
I'm not sure, but you were talking about the surrealism movement and
surrealism. I mean, it was early turn of the century.
Yeah.
Which is weird because now we're in the other turn of the century. So it was early 1900s. Whereas Renaissance was more of the 1600s and stuff like that, right?
Right.
Whenever
after the first plague, the big plague. Yes, Michelangelo.
Michelangelo, yeah. You absolutely get influenced by those around you, and that's a huge advantage. Like Cooper had mentioned that his neighbor was a mean Karen, right? But do you spend that much time with her? You probably don't spend that much time with your neighbor who's mean.
Well, luckily for me, she's a couple streets down.
Okay.
But so you know about her.
You probably spend more time with your friend.
Yeah. I've only lived here for 4 days, and I've already had more than 2 interactions with her.
Oh, well, welcome to the neighborhood.
She's ruining it for the other Karens.
Well, you'll have to spend more time with people that inspire you and that build you up. You can control that, and that's a big part of what will help you be successful, is surrounding yourself with people that challenge you and that can help build you up as well. So as a comic, I try to spend my time with as many other like successful comedians as I can. And I try to sort of punch above my weight class. So right now, if I was more famous, you guys would already know who I was. I'll work on it so that this can make more sense later. But yeah, as a comic, I try to spend time with people who have done Netflix specials, who have done the things that I want. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to try to connect to those people and get to where they're at. You'll find that who you surround yourself with ends up being a big part on what you end up, like the level of success that you end up getting. So yeah, I'm always, a while back, I had a roommate who was he had started a business and he had became a millionaire through the business he started. And I was like, I've never lived with a millionaire and I don't know anything about money. So I moved in with this guy to help me learn how to manage my money. He helped me manage my money so much that when all of my income sources ended, when the pandemic started, I was able to rely on the reserves and the way that I had learned how to handle my money from this roommate who was a millionaire, and was able to make it through. 2020 was like, I probably had maybe 80% less work than normal, because Zoom shows, they're great, but it's like they don't pay as much as regular in-person shows. Not that this isn't Zoom, but whatever.
Yeah.
So there was value in that, in me connecting with him and surrounding myself with somebody who knew how to handle money, because it kind of taught me how to do it too. But yeah, I think comedy's the same way. Surround yourself. Yeah. He started the Missouri Star Quilt Company. As stupid as that is, he started a quilting company, and he was embarrassed by it for years. It was like, I do quilting. I think he's now worth around, oh gosh, I think it's somewhere like 30 million.
Wow.
Yeah. I also learned something interesting is that when you go out to eat with your friend who has $30 million, you would think that you wouldn't split the check, but you do. That's weird. But whatever. That's his choice. You can do whatever you want with your money. It's not mine, I guess. So, but I think if I had a ton of money, I'd probably flip the bill.
That's how
I want to say that. Who knows, right? Who knows until I get in that situation.
So I would love to know, who are your favorite comedians? Who do you kind of look up to as a role model? And
sure. I mentioned one of my friends who's friends with Jerry Seinfeld, Ryan Hamilton. One of my favorite comics, because I met him before I started doing stand-up, and we made good friends. And he sort of has helped me on the whole journey, the whole way through. And he has a Netflix special. If you guys want to check that out, it's family friendly for everybody. What's his special called? Happy Face.
Okay.
Happy Face on Netflix. And then, I like Mike Birbiglia a lot, and Jim Gaffigan. I think you guys probably know those names. And Brian Regan has been a big guy. But then the other ones who I would say are most influential for me, again, are the ones who are closest to me, who maybe you guys like. I don't know that person yet. So hopefully you will eventually, like Ryan or me, Steve Soelberg. Let's see who else has been most influential. I love Maria Bamford. You guys maybe go, I don't know who that is, but she's just this hilarious, eccentric lady out of LA she grew up in the Midwest, but she's one of my favorites. Anyways, yeah.
So are they, I'm not really too familiar with the names that you mentioned, but I'm going to be, because I'm going to familiarize myself with them and their work. And yours as well. Where can we see you perform?
Sure. If you want to find me, so I have a special on Amazon. It's called We Say Bim, and then I have those two specials are also on Dry Bar Comedy. So if you've ever seen them, you can just find them on. I think they have an app actually called Dry Bar Comedy, and I have two specials on there. It's again We Say Bim, and one called Pirate Hymns.
Okay.
So you can find We Say Bim and Pirate Hymns on the Dry Bar Comedy app, or just search for me on YouTube, and you'll find. There you go, Mark. You got it. Yep.
And what about a live show or a live Zoom show? Is that something that people can see you perform via?
Zoom shows?
Yeah.
Yes. I've started doing more live shows. I'm getting out my cell phone because I'm like, do I have any Zoom, like public Zoom shows?
Or how would people schedule a private Zoom show?
I guess you could just reach out to me on my website.
I'll just go through Mariana, I guess. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's true. Just reach out to Mariana. She'll know. Yeah. There's a contact spot on my website, or it's so funny because now we have 8,000 ways to get a hold of people, right? You can email, cell phone, or Instagram. I've booked shows from people just messaging me on Instagram as well. So it's kind of a goofy way. Yeah, I don't know if I have any virtual stuff that's public. If any of you work for DMBA, I have a gig for some credit union coming up on Friday, and a gig at an axe throwing place on May 5th for Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, in Salt Lake?
That one is up in Kaysville.
No.
So not as close, but yeah, they're throwing axes and having tacos.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good combination.
yeah, it sounds super safe. I don't know how I feel about my whole audience having axes.
Right. I have,
like these.
if you can't tell, I have like 150 more questions for you that I'd just love to talk to you about. But these guys do have another class after this one. And so I want to give them just a chance if there's any other questions or things that you wanted to talk about before off you go, because I don't want you to be late.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did your dad actually teach you the pirate hymn?
Oh, you've seen the show. Yeah, my dad did. So the pirate hymn question, yeah.
You actually sing it?
He did. He said, I was choosing hymns for church, and I said, which one? And my dad goes, just don't choose the pirate hymn. And I go, what's that? And my dad goes, the one that goes, ooh. And I was like, I don't know.
Like, don't press the button.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's true story. And my mom was laughing, going, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah. My dad's always been a big goofball, and so that's been probably why I ended up in this career, was because of him.
So had you even paid, did the art of, comedy even catch your attention before college, or was it not until that later age that you even thought of it as a possibility?
Yes and no. I mean, I always loved making people laugh and stuff like that. But yeah, I never thought it would be a career. I think whenever you're funny, people are always so gracious and they say, oh, you should do that. You should do stand-up. And I got into doing musical theater because where I went to school was a smaller college. And I loved singing. And I thought, I'm going to do some performance stuff. And then for some reason, having a show just became such a thrill for me. And I think that need to have a show ended up translating into when I finished college, I was like, I want to have a show again. And then so I started doing open mic and stuff like that.
And did you start in Utah, or did you start Seattle, or?
I started in Utah, yeah, because I was living here. I was working at Myriad Genetics. If you guys have heard of them, they're great company. They do tests where they look for gene mutations associated with cancer. And they're really, anyways. But yeah, I started doing open mics at that time. And that's how it always starts. That's what's interesting to me about comedy is there's no person who does comedy who doesn't start with some kind of grassroots. It's always just like, okay, go up at open mic and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And open mic can be dingy and dirty and just garbage. But everybody, like all the big names, Jerry Seinfeld, right? Huge name or who's a name you guys would know as well, like Jim Gaffigan or something like that. They all just start.
Jim Jeffries, Dave Chappelle, those are my favorites.
Dave Chappelle, yeah. Just started doing open mics. Dave Chappelle started when he was 17.
Yeah.
And that's been the other thing is that finding, when I talk to comedians, like how long they've been in the business, often correlates to how you know them. So you go, okay, so Dave Chappelle started when he's 17. He's like 43, 44 now, right? Mm-hmm. So he's been in the business like 25 years almost, where it's like, okay,
but we still
I've been in the business 12. Those
are some of those lines from that first stand-up that he did on HBO, the first HBO special. It's like the stuff is, it doesn't go out of style. It's timeless.
Yeah. If you can do that, comedy that doesn't go out of style is, that's the hardest thing, I think. Because there's fun jokes to be had that are current, But yeah, like doing stuff that is timeless, Dave Chappelle style, Jerry Seinfeld style. I think that's incredible, and that takes Well, I don't know. I was going to say it takes a lot of time, but that being said, Dave Chappelle's first special, maybe he was only in it 12 years or whatever. So,
and then for me, you know, kind of like the ultimate goal in comedy might have been, in my mind, Saturday Night Live, an opportunity to participate in something like that. Have you ever considered that?
It's interesting because I've had a few friends who have done Saturday Night Live, and then one of my friends was him and gosh, who's the guy that ended up dating Ariana Grande?
Oh,
he's got kind of a long face.
Yeah,
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson. Yes.
Yeah. It was him and Pete Davidson, and Pete got the gig, and my buddy Dan did not. And I was like, "Oh, are you bummed out by that?" And he's like, "No. I mean, they work you super, super hard at SNL.
Yeah.
Where you cannot do anything else. I mean, you could maybe do some stand-up on the side, but really, you're not going to be able to hone that craft. Meanwhile, Dan has been able to really hone his stand-up comedy craft, and I saw him a couple months ago, and I mean, funny as ever. So there's a balance. I mean, the one is definitely going to lead to more fame, but the other led him to sort of a more rich writing career in terms of writing good, funny stand-up. So
yeah,
he, I think, was happier with the art. I mean, there's two people who get into stand-up where it's like you have performers who want to get famous, and you have performers who just want to perform. And honestly, both are fine. There's not a right or a wrong way, but there are some people who tend to want to be more just performing for the sake of it for itself. And then there's others who are like, dude, I want to be famous. And it's like, okay. I mean, both work. Whatever your motivation is, just work, and you'll get it. Yeah. That sounds crazy, but I believe it. I'm crossing my fingers that it's true.
Yeah. Well, gosh, will you class students? Any other questions, comments?
Yes, I have one. You said you like follow how you do like stand up, or like how you tell stories of what you, or like you do stand up about your stories in the past. Do you do it like how some like John Mulaney or Gabe or Grace Iglesias does it? Like,
right? Yeah. I love John Mulaney and
oh yeah,
Fluffy, right? That style, yeah. So a lot of my stories follow that sort of narrative where I want it to feel, and I guess this is also where some of my like education came in. Probably one of the most important classes I took in college was a writing course. Had very, very little to do with, not very little, but not as much focused in my major. It was an extracurricular type thing, but the writing class ended up being so helpful to be able to learn how to morph a story and have it have a nice flow, and also being able to make laughs throughout. But yeah, I'm trying to think of a story that I'm working on right now. The story I'm working on right now is about my dad who built closets when I was a kid. Yeah, I don't know that I have time to, I'm realizing I'm going to take 10 more minutes and I don't have that time, but
well, I have time.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, let's do jokes. I should have just done some jokes for you guys, huh?
What?
Would you have to be gone at 2:45?
They should have left around 2:25. So at this point, I don't know. I guess they're just maybe going to stick. No, it's not your fault. We all want to be here. So
that's funny. Yeah. So you can, if you have to go, you can take off. See, right, I don't know if it's a good idea to tell you guys jokes that I haven't worked on yet, though. Because you might be like, that one needs work. Which is always, but that's the eternally bad thing that you hear. More story-based stuff. I'll tell you this one super condensed. This is a story for me and my dad when I was, how old are you guys? What age are you when you're in 8th grade?
They're 14.
13.
13, 14. Okay, so I was slightly older. This is when I was 15. When I was 15, I used to go with my dad and visit people in their homes. We had to go and once a month go and visit these people in their home, make sure they were doing okay, having a good, stuff. And we were assigned to go visit people who are hoarders, which is a fun group to visit. I don't know if you've ever visited a hoarder. But you'll play some games, right? The first game you play when you visit a hoarder is called How Long Can I Hold My Breath?
Oh my gosh.
Right? The second you walk into a hoarder's home, it's just stuff piled everywhere, and you're accosted by a smell that you go, I need to hold my breath. And then the second game you play when you visit a hoarder's house is called What is a Chair? They love that game because you go into a hoarder's house and they go, have a seat. And you can see them snickering.
Oh my
because
gosh.
there's no chair. What is a chair? What? Nothing looks like a chair. It's just piles of stuff covered with bed sheets. And you lift up a bed sheet and you don't find a chair. You just find a stack of flattened cats. Just cats piled high. It's like National Geographic magazines. There's like, this is our kitty from 92. He goes on the bottom. And you're like, oh, it's so scary. So my dad was very good at what is a chair. He actually found a chair and sat. But I did not find a chair. I was awkward. And he's like, Steve, you don't need to find a chair. Come on over and sit on my lap. Right? Sit on your dad's knee. What 15-year-old wouldn't love to do that, right? Sit on your dad's lap. And it was awful. And I hated it. And he could tell that I hated it. So he bounced me with his knee.
Oh my gosh.
Like, Dad, I'm not a baby. I'm not. And he patted me on the back and I burped and I felt better. And then a cat that was not yet flat, this was a fully fluffed cat, wanders through the rubble, hops up on my dad's other knee. Yeah, at the last seat in the house. And promptly vomited on my dad's knee.
Oh my gosh. Of all
it was
the places,
insane.
that is...
Kitty was like, you guys smell normal. I fixed it. We had been barfed on.
What?
And usually when you get barfed on, I felt like we could have left. I was like, oh,
that was
we
like
got barfed on.
You're out.
We got to go. But the hoarders just sat there. They were like, oh, sorry, that happens. So I'm like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. This is the first time I've been on my dad's lap and a cat has vomited. This is a very rare situation. I've never done this before. And so we sat there, and my dad's like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep talking to these people, which is impossible. I don't know if you guys are this way, but I'm this way. Whenever you smell something that's a little bad, you get a little, you kind of start to get that little gag situation. And that's my dad is going, anyways, we just wanted to see how you guys are doing. I'm fine. He was doing this weird, like, I gotta think. But then it changed, right? It went from to, which you can hear that. That's a different sound, right? It's even hearing it on a virtual show. Some of you are like, don't make that sound. I don't feel good when you make that sound. I don't know what it is, but we have this sympathetic gag reflex, right? They call them mirror neurons. Biology coming in there. Whenever somebody goes like this, we tend to all go like that. This is why I think that's so. Long time ago, ancestors, they were eating mastodon, right? One guy's eating mastodon. It wasn't cooked all the way. And he goes, this is bad mastodon. The second guy, he's like, it seems good to me. He eats it. Third guy, when the first guy goes, he goes, I don't feel good either. Guess what? That second guy, he died. Yeah. It was bad mastodon. Yeah. So then when the third guy who lived, that carried on our species. So that's what happened, right? The gene for sympathetic gag reflex got passed on. And now anytime anybody goes like this, we all go, for the tribe! And we all barf together.
That seems completely plausible to me. I think that is a pretty good theory.
It could be. See, you see how the biology, it all comes apart,
Definitely.
full circle. And so that's where we were.
That is
Me sitting on my dad's knee, cat barf on the other. And we all just barfed together. Just all of us had a fun little, we'll wrap this story up. That's,
I love it. See, and that lends to other stories. It makes me think of how my dog always does that when other dogs walk by the house. She runs over and, jumps on one of the kids and makes that noise, and then eventually throws up. She's very nervous around other dogs for some reason.
Oh my! What kind of dog is that?
A golden doodle.
Oh, what an adorable! Yeah, they're such. I love dogs. They're the best. I try to have that attitude of life, just exuberance for whenever you see anybody, right?
Right. Yes. But I think there is a third game that you could play at for visiting the hoarder's house, because if you live next to them, you're more concerned about the exterior of the house and what's going on the outside, right? So it's got to have something to do with rodents maybe, and keeping them from crossing the lines into your yard, right?
Cross it, yeah. Starting to move in. It is it was a weird, that's a true story. And you guys will have true stories like that happen, that are weird, that y'all end up telling.
I think that's the best kind of comedy. So is your style.
Yeah, because it ends up being relatable. You want it to feel like natural whenever you're writing or telling a story. There's a mix of things. Some people can do comedy that is, like I said, there's different genres, right? You can do comedy that's very fantastic, where it's like, that's unbelievable. One of my friends used to do a joke that he would say, probably the most fun that I ever had was a unicorn hunting safari that I went on with my dad. And it was just like, it's just weird. You're like, what are you talking about? There's no, he's like, we used to bag like three or four corns, like trophy corns, big, good. I was like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I like to do reality based stuff.
Yeah, that's the best kind.
Anyways.
Well, we've probably kept you for way longer than you were anticipating, and I'm so sorry about that. I think I speak for all of us when I say how we've really enjoyed this. This has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully it helps you, inspire you guys for whatever you're doing and stuff like that.
And I would like to know more about the comedy club circuit in Salt Lake, because I was not aware that there were, live comedy shows happening around town. Maybe pre-pandemic, but
Salt Lake has a couple different things. So yeah, Mark brought up Dry Bar. Dry Bar is one where they're based down in Utah County, and I've filmed there a couple times. So their whole thing is online. You do have a live show where you can record, and then they push that out on their various platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And then Wise Guys is the local comedy club, and I'll be at the West Jordan. I always get South Jordan and West Jordan mixed up, whatever that is. But yeah, I'll be at the West Jordan Club June 11th and 12th. Okay. Wise Guys. And they're a great club. They're an A-list room. We like to say, that's that term. It's a great club. They have a few different clubs. They have one in Ogden, one in downtown, and one in West Jordan. So,
but is it unique to Utah, that club? Are they outside of Utah?
They're expanding. They have one in Vegas now, and then maybe one in Boise. But yeah,
not a lot of like hole in the wall. But I used to live in New York City, so I did get the opportunity to go and see some of the cast members from SNL, the not as maybe famous or well known ones.
Sure.
Still trying to keep up the craft, I guess, right down the street in the East Village from where I lived. But it was like a real dive bar. Is there anything like that?
But the East Village has some of the best comedy clubs in the world. I mean, arguably the best club in the world is the Cellar.
About that place.
which is funny because it's like you could fit, I mean, maybe 80 people, and that's packed.
That's right down from where I used to live, right down the street.
Yeah, that's probably the best club in the world. I mean, all the big names in comedy came out of the Cellar, where you go, okay, who's a big name from the Cellar? And it's like, name a big name in comedy, and they've worked there, honed their craft there. Yeah, it's a great room.
Yeah, I kind of just personally, and this is really just not necessarily anything that is going to benefit you guys, students. Now I'm taking this conversation in a different direction. I'm just curious because I like that sort of underground, not well publicized or mainstream, I guess, not as mainstream. The idea of the, hole in the wall, not popular club.
For some reason, some of the best artists, some of the best people that you guys will meet, they might not be famous. Van Gogh, again, I love art and stuff like that. Van Gogh, famous artist, was not popular during his lifetime. Nobody knew who he was, and he died fairly poor. Now, Van Gogh's works, I mean, one of his paintings, gosh, I don't know how much, but millions and millions of dollars. And you wonder why that is. And I think some of it was because the audience hadn't connected to him until they had read his letters about how much passion he had for life and how much passion he had for his work, and all these things overflowed, and we read it and it touched our hearts, and we went, oh, who is this? I must see his work. And then it became some of the most popular paintings of all time. If you don't know Van Gogh, just Google him and you'll see a lot of his work. Probably Starry Night, probably the most famous. I don't know. There's a lot that are famous, but yeah,
he was disliked actually when he was alive by most people. He was like the awkward guy in the room, and he was constantly trying to prove himself. He hung out with. He had a best friend artist also, and I'm trying to think of who it was right now. I want to Google it, but his best friend would get all the ladies, right? And Van Gogh would feel very inferior. But nevertheless, they were roommates too. So they'd go back home, and then Van Gogh would just be sad and paint and, take be sad about it and use that as his cathartic release. Well, whereas his buddy would go home with the ladies probably. And,
Mr. Cool.
Yeah. And he was mean to Van Gogh. And, so Van Gogh had a really sad story actually, but in his afterlife, he's celebrated all over the world. So I like art too.
I had to Google it. Paul Gauguin? Is that his roommate?
Okay.
I don't know.
Just a second. Sorry, what was that?
I had to Google it. I'm not sure if I'm right though. If I was his best roommate, friend? Paul Gauguin?
Yeah, Gauguin. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Paul Gauguin, the ladies' man, from what I understand. Yep.
Yeah, there's some of those painters that are the ladies' man, right?
Yeah. And then the one you were talking about, was it Matisse from France? He also rolled around with like this pack of artists that some of which became famous. They're the ones that were credited for starting the anti-art movement, the anti-classical movement, because they were doing Impressionism and they had the anti-gallery.
Right as Picasso started.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he was just slightly after them, but not much. I mean, I think he was influenced by those guys.
They were known as the rebels, the art rebels. They like everyone thought it was crazy that they wanted to go and paint outdoor scenes down by the river and lilies and whatnot. And so there was this big famous show. They took place in Paris every year, and they made a point of scheduling their own show at the same time. It's called The Rebels Show, and that one became much, much bigger than the original classic gallery. And
Get out of here.
no, I'm serious. And so it was referred to as like The Rebels Show, and that's how Impressionism was born. Took on it, and so it's rare for artists to become rich or famous within their own lifetime. It's usually after their passing, but in his case, he did. He got rich within his own lifetime because of being a rebel.
Some of them pull it off,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's more possible now to pull it off than ever with social media and stuff like that.
Definitely.
You might see kids who are like painting and they show their stuff on TikTok or whatever they use, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you use, I don't know.
Yeah.
Our ability to connect with people, I think, is so much greater, and I think that really drives up the possibility of people being able to be famous before they die tragically. I don't know why so many artists have to die tragically, but it seems to be a weird
Theme.
thing.
Sorry. Can you? Let's see. I want to actually grab something here and see if I have it. Yes, I was not talking about Matisse. I was talking about Monet, just to clarify. Monet.
Oh, Monet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this guy right there.
Good old
Rebel.
Claude.
Good old Claude. Yep. And Renoir was one of his, posse, the Rebels posse.
If whenever we get done with this pandemic, which, maybe who knows, it would be great to you guys to visit those places and see those arts. Monet, you can see some of his huge galleries in France, in Paris, and it's just like, it's cool to see. It's cool to see.
Well, gosh, I think we've probably taken up way too much of your time, but thank you again for spending this hour with us. I really enjoyed it, and I think that the rest of them did too, or they wouldn't still be here. That's for sure.
It's great to connect with you guys and meet you guys. I got to get down to where you're at. I got to go see the tulips. I haven't seen the tulip festival or whatever. Is that in Lehigh? I feel like that's in Lehigh.
I've never
Yeah.
heard of it. Is that
Yeah.
over here? But it sounds like it'd be right up my alley because I'm from Belgium, originally. So tulips are a big thing. Yeah. I have a student in here that's been listening in and enjoying it as well. So, and he seems to be familiar with your stuff also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But he's off camera,
Awesome.
so you can't know about him.
It's a secret.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Thank you so
This
much.
has been fantastic. Hope you guys
Thank you.
Yeah.
continue to have a good
Thank you.
journey.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you in action sometime. Maybe even live.
catch me sometime.
Okay.
Oh, there I am. I see me now. I don't know how to. This is. Oh, there it is.
The end button.
I don't know how to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy Wednesday. See you guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Today is Thursday. You're absolutely right. I didn't even catch that. I also can't turn off the meet. So, weird how my.
Are you good to go?
Yes, of course. You've been good to go for ages, you guys. You're awesome though. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you Monday or tomorrow.